The role of a manager or an administrator is a very interesting role. People have a lot of confusion about the role. People look at the role in terms of status, prestige, sometimes emoluments, perquisites. But what is really the responsibility for that role? That is the key factor. We use the word supervision, and many times we are attracted by the word super, not the vision. For somebody to do supervise, the important thing is not to be superior to somebody, but superior in vision to somebody. And that is a very important responsibility. Everybody who works in an organization is responsible for his work. But the managerial or the administrative role is being responsible for somebody else's work. Now that is a very important thing. Because you can do your work, if something wrong happens, you can correct it, you can put more hours of work, complete it. But when you have to get work from others, that is always a difficult thing. It's like instructing a taxi driver to take the taxi somewhere in a complicated place as against you yourself driving it. And most of the time, we are very dissatisfied with the way somebody else does the job. But to make somebody else do the job the way we want it, basically requires 4 functions: motivation, communication, decision making, and human resource development. We have to motivate a person to do something. People are not automatically motivated. In fact, left to themselves, they may do nothing. So you have to see that they are motivated to do something. Second is you have to communicate so that what they have to do is very clear. Now everybody thinks he's a good communicator, but there is confusion everywhere. Everybody who tries to communicate says he is communicating well, but there is a misunderstanding all the time. So he has to look at himself. Blaming somebody else for misunderstanding is very easy, but it cannot solve the problem. Why the misunderstanding has taken place, to understand it and to correct it next time you communicate, is the remedial step. Third is decision making. People always have a tendency to put a decision in the lap of somebody else, because then they have a ready-made excuse. Well, I didn't do it, he told me to do it. So everything is referred to somebody, if possible. And the skill of an administrator is to make people believe that they can do it and they don't require constant guidance to do it. The guidance has to be exceptional and not regular. And last is human resource development. How are people developed? Because nobody is born with a specific function. There are no Abhimanyus in this world who, when they are born, knew something about it. Everybody in his life keeps on learning. But how much he learns and how well he learns depends on the administrator or the manager who is organizing his learning. Learning doesn't mean putting in a class and giving lectures. As Ruskin has very well put it, learning is not knowing more, learning is behaving differently. And somebody has to observe the behavior, see it is changing, and to supervise the change, monitor the change, and to give a feedback. This is a very important process. So when you look at successful managers in any field of life, you will find they are doing these 4 functions quite effectively: motivation, communication, decision making, and human resource development. And this is what makes a manager. It is not the prestige, status, emoluments, perquisites, but it is the responsibility he takes to see that he is working with people. They are motivated to do the things required. Then there is a clear communication as to exactly what they have to do, not necessarily how they have to do. You can later on leave that matter to the individual performing the task. But what is the task achieving? That is very important for him to understand. Third is making decisions when required, and that is obviously an important part of managerial job, because people are going to refer decisions to him. If they refer too many decisions, then that's a failure of the manager. Then he gets bogged down with all kinds of decisions. If nobody refers anything to him, then he becomes a blind chap. He doesn't know what is happening in the organization. So you have to get the golden mean to see that you are with the decisions, but you are not taking all the decisions. बाजार से गुजरा हूँ, खरीदार नहीं हूँ. So you are observing everything, but you are not participating in everything. And fourth, I would say the most important function is the human resource development. That is where I consider the mother as the best example, because every mother develops a child. A child, when it is born, is a very stupid, uncivilized, crude creature, has no sense of responsibility. By the time it is 3-year-old, it's a gentleman or a lady, says good morning, thank you. How does this change come up? And that is, I would say, the most important part of development. People have to change, but people do not change very easily, and that is the skill of the administrator to change. In fact, every time I meet effective managers, effective administrators, they come out saying, I learned a lot from so and so. Somebody is responsible for the learning. And many times it's the first boss that teaches you a lot of things. Particularly when it's very tough, does not accept any excuses. That becomes the most effective factor. So, the role of the administrator is to create an atmosphere where change is taking place, people are motivated, they are communicated with, they communicate regarding their problems. Decisions, when they are required, are given at the appropriate level, and ultimately everybody develops to handle bigger and bigger job. And that is what makes a manager or an administrator.